In today's video, we're going to be breaking down Kyle McCord of Syracuse. What do we think his strengths and weaknesses are? Do we think that he has the ability to transition from college to the NFL and be a starting quarterback? And finally, where do we think he gets drafted? Watch to the end of this video and you'll have a good idea. As far as his height and weight, he's listed as 6'3", 220 pounds on PFF. I think both the height and the weight are reasonably accurate. As far as quarterback height, generally you want to be at least 6'1". If you're 6 feet tall or shorter, it makes life really difficult to see the short to intermediate area in the middle of the field. And so we can see on film that he can access all portions of the field, and so his height isn't going to be any detriment to him here. Now, you might notice that he's 22 years and 3 months old. That's because he is a senior. And now, generally with most prospects, we want them to be early declares and really young. And obviously, you would theoretically prefer that with any prospect. But we've seen recently with players like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix that it doesn't maybe per se matter, and more experience could potentially be a good thing in terms of hitting the ground running at the NFL level. Well, he began at Ohio State. He really didn't do much his first 2 collegiate seasons, but then he was able to start as a true junior at Ohio State. And so he had 229 completions on 354 attempts. That was a completion percentage of 64.7% for 3,169 passing yards, 9.0 yards per attempt, 24 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And his PFF passing grade of 76 was decent, but not otherworldly. In terms of his production on the ground, basically a non-factor. You're going to notice that really with this profile. And so on 21 rush attempts, he had 37 rushing yards, 1.8 yards per attempt, no touchdown. Now, it is important to know that sack yardage is deducted from these totals, and so that is something to consider here. But then he decided to transfer to Syracuse as a senior, and I really think that is going to massively improve his draft stock. And so he had 390 completions on 593 attempts. That was a 65.8 completion percentage, 4,760 passing yards. Now, his yards per attempt did dip from 9.0 to 8.0. I think surrounding talent and offensive scheme have something to do with that. But then we saw his touchdowns go from 24 to 34, but also his interceptions go from 6 to 12. However, when we look at his PFF passing grade, it went from 76 to 87.5, and that is a substantial jump. And I will say, on film, when you take a look at some of his junior collegiate games versus his senior collegiate games, there is a ton of improvement with him. And then on the ground, it wasn't a drastic improvement. Instead of 21 attempts, he had 51. Instead of 37 yards, he had 155. But he did have 3 rushing touchdowns. And then we saw his fumbles go from 3 to 6. That is something to note here. He did have 6 fumbles and 12 interceptions, and so that's a total of 18 turnovers on the season. But overall, this is really good production. And so taking a look at some advanced stats here, among draft-eligible FBS quarterbacks with at least 320 dropbacks, that was a sample size of 44 here. His PFF passing grade of 87.5 was 6th. And now I don't take PFF grades as definite fact. I like to contextualize it by looking at film and thinking about external factors that could be influencing their grades. But I generally agree that he has been very good as a passer this season. Taking a look at his adjusted completion percentage, which removes purposeful throwaways, his 75.2% was 15th best in the sample size. Better than halfway, but not particularly impressive, I guess. His yards per attempt of 8.0 was tied for 16th as well. And so right about more the same, a little bit better than halfway, but not particularly great. His passing touchdowns of 34, however, were 4th, so we definitely like that production. But he kind of counteracted that by having 12 interceptions, which was tied for the 3rd most in the sample size. And obviously you want fewer interceptions. His big-time throw percentage of 5.7%, though, was 5th. And so you might be thinking, this kind of is the profile of a gunslinger. There you go. That's accurate. His turnover-worthy play percentage of 3.5% was tied for 14th most as well. We would obviously prefer that be much lower, but at least it isn't among the leaders in the sample size. His dropped pass percentage of 6% was 31st in the sample size. And so his receivers did a better job than some of these guys, at least in terms of not dropping the football. So we do like that. In terms of pressures, he faced 171, and these are pressures that he didn't bring upon himself. And so that was tied for 5th most in the sample size. I will say, when looking at the film, his pass blocking from the offensive line was non-existent, and they weren't really creating any lanes for the running game either, so he was not being helped. He was lifting and elevating everyone else in the situation there. The team was not helping him at all in any way, shape, or form. Taking a look at his pressure to sack ratio, his 17% was 24th most in the sample size. So that's pretty good. We generally want our pressure to sack ratio to be below 20%. So that's not an astronomical number, but that's good and better than the minimum threshold that we typically would like to see with some of these prospects. And looking at his time to throw, his 2.4 seconds were 43rd in the sample size. That's good. That is the second quickest time for releasing the ball out of your hands. And so something about him is he is a very good pre-snap processor. He has a general understanding of what the defense is going to be in, where the pressure is coming from. And so he knows how to get the ball out of his hands quickly. And that is definitely something we like in our quarterbacks. And so getting to some grades, remember that he's give or take 6'3", 220 pounds. That's both the requisite height and weight necessary to be a high-end starter at the NFL level, whether or not he does turn into a high-level starter. Remember that he's a senior out of Syracuse. He spent his first 3 collegiate seasons at Ohio State before transferring. Honestly, if you had asked me a year ago, after his true junior season, whether I thought he was going to grade out as a great prospect, you would have gotten a huge no from me. But as far as his valuation, I think he's worthy of an early first-round pick, especially in this draft. My pro comp for him, I think he's a combination of Matt Stafford, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold. And so with Matt Stafford, it's the pre-snap processing. He knows exactly where he wants to go with the ball. He has full command of his offense. And he especially knows where the pressure is coming from almost every time. It is quite impressive, especially for a collegiate prospect. And it's not as if he's played 8 years, at least in college. He reminds me of Baker Mayfield and a little bit in regard to Stafford because he has incredible arm talent and he can access anywhere on the field. But more so with Mayfield, he reminds me of Mayfield in that he is cocky. He knows he has the arm talent and he tests it, for better or worse. And he reminds me of Sam Darnold, and that just like with Stafford and Mayfield, Darnold also has a very good arm in terms of pure arm talent. But one thing that Darnold does is when he is faced with pressure in which he wasn't expecting, he does make critical errors. And so that is something that I see with Kyle McCord is that while he in general has a very good idea as to what the defense is going to be doing, where he wants to go, he gets the ball out quickly. You saw with his time to throw, which was second lowest in that sample size. Unfortunately, when he's wrong, we do see some critical errors. And so that is a big red flag, to be honest with you. And as far as my official grade, I gave him a 75.5 out of 100. As far as his arm talent goes, I think it is a 9.5 out of 10. He can throw with zip 40 plus yards down the field with ease. He has a quick, snappy throw motion, at least compared to some players like Cam Ward who kind of have to wind up. As far as his arm talent, he can access just about anywhere on the field. I really don't think this is going to be an issue at the NFL level. And I think when he steps foot in the NFL, I think he in general, at least among potential starting players, is going to have a top 5 to 8 arm in terms of pure ability to get the ball where he wants it. In terms of his short accuracy, I gave it a 9 out of 10. It is quite good. You'll see on shallow crosses, speed outs, it's slant routes, really anything. He throws with tremendous accuracy in the short area of the field. You really only see misfires for the most part when he is forced to be running while throwing. In terms of his medium accuracy, he throws an incredibly accurate dig route, a 10-yard out, crossers, you name it. He has incredible accuracy, and I think his best accuracy is in the intermediate area of the field. And in terms of his deep accuracy, he really didn't have a ton of success in the sense of completions a lot of the time deep down the field, but it was not because of him. He was getting no separation from the Syracuse receivers on film at all, and he was still putting the ball perfectly to where only they could get to it. And remember, he has the arm talent to access anywhere on the field. As far as his throw-off platform, though, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I think in general, it is pretty good. But when you do see misfires, it almost always has to do with that he's throwing off platform. Now, when he is expecting to have to be throwing off a platform, his accuracy really doesn't get changed at all. It's still really, really good, especially when he's drifting to his left and kind of fading away. I saw a couple really, really accurate shallow crosses while doing so. But the issue is when he's not expecting pressure and he's forced off of his reads, he does have accuracy issues. But one thing I also like about him is that with every read, you can see him reset. And so as far as his footwork is concerned, it is immediately going to be one of the best rookie prospects in terms of footwork that I've seen in the past 2 seasons. As far as his speed's concerned, I gave him a 3.5 out of 5. And so it's not particularly crazy, but once he's able to get going in a straight line, he does have build-up speed. But you'll notice that I have a 2.5 out of 5 in terms of acceleration. That's because he really isn't that quick to get to his top speed. In terms of his scramble intelligence, he rarely scrambles. He tries so hard to extend the play both in the pocket and outside the pocket. I did see maybe 2 or 3 intelligent scrambles, but I really don't think he's going to be scrambling very often at the NFL level. In terms of his rushing upside, I'd say a 2.5 out of 5. One thing is he is very good at converting short yardage situations. I saw time and time and time again that he was able to power through people, especially when he was given a tush push like formation, to be able to score touchdowns. And so I do think he's going to have high touchdown upside on the ground, but I don't think he's going to have the rush yardage upside. As far as his pre-snap grade, I gave him a 4.5 out of 5. He generally understands what the defense is going to be doing, where he needs to go with the ball. His time to throw should tell you that. He has a very intelligent brain. Now, sometimes he's wrong, and so he's not going to get a perfect grade because there are times when he is able to be fooled by disguised coverages, and especially in terms of where the pressure's coming from. But it is almost always perfect with him, at least in the sample size of games in which I watched. As far as his post-snap processing. And so with that, most of the time, he is correct with what he thinks is going to happen pre-snap, happening post-snap. And most of the time, he has the ball out quickly, perfect ball placement too. But the issue is when he's wrong, disastrous plays happen. And so I gave him a 3.5 out of 5 because when he's wrong, he will throw a pick, he'll fumble, he'll have a very negative play. And so that is going to be something where obviously with all these prospects, you're going to have to improve your ability to read defenses and understand where the pressure's coming from. But he's going to have to lower the disastrous plays because especially with Darnold, if you do that too often, even though he was a high draft pick, there is the chance for you to get benched, for instance, especially if you're not even somebody that has high draft capital and team investment to begin with. As far as his pocket presence, it's quite good. He has very good maneuverability in the pocket. He has a similar ability to, like that of Caleb Williams, to just have this feel for where the pressure is coming from and how to maintain his ability to look downfield while also avoiding it. When the pressure does get to him, though, he is likely to fumble. So that is a concern for sure. As far as his play extension, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. So he doesn't have the athleticism sometimes to really be able to escape quick edge rushers. That is going to be a problem because they only get faster at the NFL level, right? But when he is able to, he is great in terms of he knows where he wants to go with the ball. He's looking downfield. He has the arm talent to get it anywhere he wants. And the accuracy is generally going to be quite good as well. But once again, he just doesn't have the athleticism like somebody Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams like to really be able to take advantage of his ability to extend the play. In terms of in the pocket, though, it is great. There's this rep where he's drifting to the left as he knows a free rusher and a cover zero is coming to his right, and he fades to the left and throws a perfect ball on a shallow cross over a defender. And I mean, the ball placement was perfect. And so he has this great ability to do this. It's just when, once again, he's not expecting pressure, or he guesses incorrectly, or he guesses the coverage incorrectly, very disastrous plays happen. As far as his clutch factor, I gave him a 3.5 out of 5. He did have game winners in terms of against Miami and Notre Dame, and so I have seen it before, but I wouldn't generally describe him as the most clutch quarterback that's constantly leading his team from behind. He did have a 5 interception game, for instance, where some of the interceptions are just because you're going to have to continue to try to throw when you're down big. But that's an example of he wasn't really able to lead his team back. And so I think that he does have the ability to. I just don't think that he's going to be one of the most clutch quarterbacks. In terms of worries and limitations, will he improve against surprise pressure? Once again, when he doesn't know where the pressure is coming from, he guesses incorrectly. Disastrous things happen, pick sixes, fumbles. So he's going to have to improve his ability to adapt when he's not expecting something, which could be very challenging for him for sure. And then will he receive the draft capital to get a chance? That also matters, obviously. If he gets the draft capital and the ability to start, I think he has a lot of high-end traits, specifically arm talent and accuracy, as well as the pre-snap processing to be very successful at the NFL level. And so where does Kyle McCord rank among other prospects in the 24 class? I've graded a couple 25 quarterbacks already, but I'm not going to release the grades until I release the prospect video for each one of them. Well, as a prospect, I still considered Caleb Williams to be in his own tier. An 80 or above is an elite quarterback prospect. It is very hard to score high in this. You would essentially have to be a super athlete that doesn't have any flaws to score really, really high in this model. I consider Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Kyle McCord as great prospects, and the only great prospects that I've graded or at least released so far. I definitely think that Jaden Daniels had a lot more upside. Obviously, his athleticism gave him a big edge there. With Drake May, a little combination of that he was still very, very good as a prospect, had early production with very underrated rushing upside as well. With Kyle McCord, he has a lot of really good traits, just, maybe not the athleticism that we would prefer for fantasy purposes, but I feel pretty confident that he has a good shot at hitting at the NFL level, but landing spot and draft capital will matter a ton with him as a prospect. I considered Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and McCarthy to be good prospects that definitely had a high floor for some of them, maybe a reduced ceiling. And with Spencer Rattler and Joe Milton, I just wasn't the biggest fan. They had some traits for sure, but I really didn't think that they were going to be able to put it together at the NFL level. And so remember that Kyle McCord is give or take 6'3", 220 pounds. And so he has the requisite size in terms of height and weight to be able to be successful at the NFL level. He is a senior, but once again, we saw with Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels that older prospects that have played multiple years in college can come in and hit the ground running. So that could be something that actually ends up helping McCord. Then when we take a look at his valuation, I think he's worthy of an early first-round pick. I think that he has the tools and the accuracy, especially with some of the elite arm talent, to be a very effective quarterback at the NFL level. But he definitely has his own warts. My comp for him is a combination of Stafford, Mayfield, and Darnold. Remember that with Stafford, it's that his pre-snap processing is quite good. He has a very good understanding of the defense. He has the ability to instantly know where he wants to go with the ball. He has the ability to buy time inside the pocket due to a lack of athleticism, just like with Matt Stafford. He's Baker Mayfield in that he is cocky. He thinks he can do anything on the field. He will test people and plays with absolutely no fear, along with having a very, very good arm in terms of arm talent, just like Baker Mayfield. And he's unfortunately a little bit of Sam Darnold, and that when he isn't prepared for pressure, he can make some very poor decisions. And so that is something that could potentially follow him to the NFL. And if he was to fail, I think that would be the biggest and most likely reason for him failing at the NFL level. And so my official grade, once again, is a 75.5 out of 100, which is a great quarterback prospect. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Major Jack, and Infamy MTG. If you would like to become a member, I'm going to leave a link in the comment section. As far as what you'll gain, you'll get access to a private Discord server. I'm going to have a real life and fantasy football chat where we talk about real life NFL news. Any questions you might have will be answered in the real life NFL chat. And as far as the fantasy football chat, we'll talk about what's happening in the fantasy world. I'll give you team reviews, give you optimal roster construction based on your specific league settings, trades you can make to strengthen your roster, buying and selling points, specifically price points for various players based on your positions of need. I'll give you a special shout out, obviously, on all of these videos. You'll get early access to videos. You'll be part of private live streams that are not available to regular YouTube members. And you will also have the ability to suggest videos specifically for you on Patreon. I've already made one on Isaac Rendo as per request by one of my Patreon members. And so once again, if you would like to join, the link is going to be in the comment section. Thanks.